I stood in my kitchen, clutching my coffee mug so tightly I thought it might shatter in my hand. Across from me sat my daughter, glowing in her white dress, cheeks still flushed from the wedding 2 days ago. Her new husband Brian sat beside her like he owned every piece of air in my home, one arm draped casually over her chair. A smile too smooth, too polished. A man who'd practiced charm in the mirror. Then he slid the envelope across the table. I didn't touch it. I barely blinked. "This is just something we thought would make things easier down the road," he said, sounding like a man offering a gift instead of digging for gold. "Legal stuff, financial coordination, you know how it is." My daughter nodded eagerly like he'd just offered her a puppy, not paperwork thick enough to choke a horse. "It's just a formality, Mom. He's great with finances. We're planning ahead. When we have kids, the trust will already be set up." Kids, trusts, planning. He said it all like he wasn't the one salivating at the idea of tapping into future family resources. My stomach twisted. The envelope was thick, heavy, professional, notarized, and worst of all, my name sat on the front of it like a target. Brian stood to clear his plate, humming like the world was perfectly normal. "We leave for the honeymoon tomorrow. Just look it over sometime." He walked out like a man who assumed I'd already signed with my eyes closed. When the door shut behind them, I opened the envelope. My hands shook before the paper did. Inside was a financial agreement. A pre-inheritance alignment. Drafted as if I'd already agreed to place part of my estate, my assets, into a trust Brian would co-manage. He wasn't subtle, he wasn't careful. He was confident. That was his mistake. What he didn't know, I wasn't a soft, clueless widow waiting to be shepherded. I inherited $7 million when my husband died. 7 million. And no one, not my daughter, not her husband, not even the bank's front desk staff, knew where it was. I'd parked it under a holding company name that didn't exist to anyone but me and one attorney I trusted with my life. Thank God, men like Brian think they're clever. I've met 20 versions of him, fake smiles, slick hair, hungry eyes. They all chew with their mouths closed, but they still look like wolves. I didn't throw the contract out. I didn't confront him. No confrontation gives men like him a warning. Instead, I tested him. 3 days later, I'd already planned the trap, a fake inheritance transfer. A decoy. A bogus breadcrumb trail leading to a modest remaining balance. The moment he tried to sniff around, I'd see exactly how far he was willing to go. But before I could even get the first wire drafted, there was a knock at my door. 9 a.m. too early for polite family visits. When I opened the door, it wasn't Brian. It was a young man in a crisp suit, polished shoes, briefcase gleaming. "Mrs. Harmon?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "My name is Carter Wells. I represent Brian and Olivia regarding an urgent financial matter." He held a contract thicker than the first. An emergency addendum, already signed by my daughter. My blood went cold. Brian wasn't just planning, he wasn't just knocking. He was digging fast, hard, and without shame. And he thought I was too blinded by motherhood to notice. He was wrong. I stepped aside and let the young lawyer in, not because I trusted him, but because snakes usually reveal more when you let them slither freely. He walked into my dining room like he was appraising the property for resale, not delivering a contract meant to gut me. He set his briefcase on my table, the same table where Olivia used to draw dinosaurs with fat crayons. Now a stranger in a sharp suit was spreading paperwork across it like a magician revealing tricks. "This is a precautionary measure," he began, sliding out glossy pages already warm from his hands. "Brian and Olivia have decided to fully align their financial futures. Naturally, this includes any assets that could benefit the trust." Translation: they wanted to know exactly how much I had and how fast they could get their hands on it. I didn't sit. I folded my arms and stared at him the way a mother stares at a man about to kick her dog. "I see," I said flatly. "Show me the part about the money." He hesitated just a flicker, then pointed to Section 7.2. "Parental estate disclosures and pre-inheritance structuring," he recited, like a robot who didn't understand the implications but hoped I did. "In plain English, give us your financial skeleton. Let us decide what you keep." I skimmed the text, and my daughter's signature glared up at me like a bruise, rushed, unsteady. She hadn't read this. She'd trusted him. Of all the things that hurt, that one pierced the deepest. "This protects everyone," the lawyer said gently. "Especially in uncertain economic times." I smiled, not the kind that reaches the eyes. The kind predators recognize. Young man, I said quietly, I don't sign anything without my own legal team. Surprise flashed across his face, surprise that the sweet widow had a spine. I'll inform them, he said. He left politely but with the tremble of someone who realized they'd underestimated the wrong woman. As soon as the door closed, I exhaled, shaking off the performance. They were circling me. Brian suspected something, maybe because Olivia mentioned I'd been comfortable, maybe because he'd seen me write checks without blinking. And now he wanted the full story, all $7 million of it. He wasn't just digging. He was tunneling. I dialed Greg, my attorney friend, and the only man who didn't treat me like fragile porcelain after my husband died. It's happening, I told him. They're pushing contracts. They want disclosures. He didn't sound surprised. They're testing you, want me to review the docs? No, I said. I want you to build a decoy. That got his attention. A decoy? Yes. I want you to draft a completely legal-looking packet showing I inherited only $240,000. Create a fake transfer trail, make it unimpressive but believable. You want them to think it's not worth chasing, he said slowly. I want them to think I'm small prey, I corrected. He let out a low whistle. You always were 10 moves ahead, Claire. I had to be, I replied. Remember how my husband's brother tried to steal our estate after the funeral? Greg laughed darkly. Hard to forget? Within days, the decoy documents were ready. I left them out casually, careless enough to tempt a thief, obvious enough to be found by someone snooping. Then I waited. 2 days, nothing, 3 days, then a ping from the bank. Attempted access to an old joint account. Maiden name used. My stomach turned to ice. Only my husband and my daughter knew about that old account, which meant Olivia hadn't betrayed me. Brian had. He'd guessed my past, dug into old drawers, and now was clawing at anything with my name on it. He was getting desperate. And desperate men get sloppy. Olivia didn't answer my calls that evening. I didn't blame her. Brian had already begun rewriting the story, painting me as the villain before I even stepped into the arena. Classic manipulator tactics: strike first, rewrite the truth, isolate the victim. I wasn't angry. Anger clouds precision. And I needed precision more than breath. By morning, I had my plan sharpened. I invited Olivia and Brian to lunch, not with tension, not with accusation, just a warm motherly "let's talk, honey." The kind of message no newlywed wants to refuse. We met at Olivia's favorite garden cafe, a place with rose bushes, koi ponds, and waiters who floated around with perfect posture. The kind of place that made people pretend they were kinder, smarter, more honest than they actually were. Brian arrived dressed like a man auditioning for a finance commercial, powder blue suit, expensive watch, smile dipped in charm. Olivia held his arm tightly as if she needed to mirror his confidence. I stood, hugged her, and smiled at Brian like I didn't already know he'd tried to access my accounts. We ordered lunch. Small talk dripped like honey, too sweet, too sticky, too artificial. Finally, he leaned forward, voice soft, rehearsed. Claire, I never meant to pressure you. I just want us to plan wisely as a family. A family? Funny, considering he tried to rob me before dessert in that family model he claimed to love. I smiled with the kind of softness that makes liars nervous. That's thoughtful, I said. He brightened. Manipulators love agreeable prey. He pulled out the same contract he'd left at my house. This is just a starting point, he said. We can tailor it together? I pretended to consider it, flipping through pages I'd already memorized. Then I reached into my purse and set down my decoy inheritance file like it was nothing. I've prepared my disclosure, I said evenly. $240,000 remaining after debts and fees. I have no other significant holdings. Brian stared at the number. He didn't hide the flicker of disappointment. $240,000 was too little to justify the amount of scheming he'd invested. Too little for a trust, too little for greed to survive on. Olivia blinked. Mom, that's it. That's all that was left, I nodded slowly. Your father had more debt than I ever told you. I handled what I could. Her eyes softened. Brian's hardened. He covered it with a smile, but cracks showed. Well, he said lightly, that's understandable. Money comes and goes. No, dear, your hopes of stealing it come and go. He excused himself a moment later, claiming the restroom. But I saw it in the way he walked, quick, tense, calculating. He wasn't using the restroom. He was pivoting. When he returned, he was too calm. He made a show of folding the contract and slipping it back into his jacket. "You're right, Claire," he said. "We don't need to rush anything." Translation: there's nothing to steal, not worth the risk. Abort mission. But I knew men like him don't just walk away. They regroup. They adapt. They bite when you least expect it. And I was right. 2 nights later, my banker called. "Mrs. Harmon, someone attempted to withdraw $240,000 from your account. It was flagged wrong device. The login came from your daughter's tablet." My entire body went cold. That was the decoy amount. He believed the lie. He went after it instantly. And he used Olivia's device to do it. I didn't need proof. I had enough. Brian wasn't just greedy, he was dangerous. I barely slept that night. My house felt colder, like someone had cracked open a window to let the danger slip inside. But the thermostat was normal. The rooms were still. It wasn't the temperature, it was the truth settling in. Brian wasn't just scheming. He was trespassing into our lives digitally, financially, emotionally, breathing down my daughter's neck like a parasite. By sunrise, I was pacing, wrapped in a blanket I didn't remember putting on. I stared at the TV without turning it on. Silence helps the mind sharpen. I didn't need noise. I needed a plan sharp enough to cut him off clean. As soon as Greg answered my call, I said it plainly. He tried to steal the decoy money logged in from Olivia's tablet. Greg didn't even sigh. Unsurprising, he's bold or stupid. Or both. I held my coffee with both hands, palms burning, thoughts racing. "Greg, I need a digital trail, something undeniable." "You'll have it today," he said. "Device signature, IP logs, timestamps, the works." But he hesitated. "Claire, we might be running out of time." I knew he was right, so I messaged Olivia. "Come to the house alone. No, Brian, I made lemon cake." She agreed. She always came for lemon cake. When she arrived, she walked in stiff, cautious. I tried to hug her, she didn't fully hug back. I told her everything: the attempted withdrawal, the fake document, the bank alert, the access from her tablet. Her face crumpled. "Mom, you set him up." "No, sweetheart, I protected you." She shook her head violently. "You manipulated us." I stood too. "I outsmarted a thief." "He loves me," she yelled, tears spilling. "You can't stand that someone else does." "He doesn't love you," I said quietly. "He's using you." Her lips trembled. But she wasn't ready to hear it. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, crying. I watched her drive away until her car shrank to a dot. The worst feeling in the world isn't losing a fight. It's losing your child's trust when you're fighting for their life. Greg called right then. "We've got everything," he said. Confirming Brian triggered the login. "I can package a full report." "Good," I whispered, staring at my reflection in the window. "Because Olivia hates me right now." "She won't," Greg said softly, "but she might." After we hung up, Greg texted again. "What if we go further?" I hesitated. "Further how?" "We review the wedding footage, reception speeches, guest videos. He's arrogant. He might have bragged." I laughed bitterly. "Greg, I don't think he'd be that careless. People like him always are." So I sent Greg everything: professional footage, guests' Instagram clips, even the shaky videos Olivia sent me the morning after the wedding. Hours later, I found it myself. Brian standing with a cocktail surrounded by friends. The camera angle was distant, but the audio clear as confession. His friend asked, "You married rich?" Brian grinned, smug as a cat with cream. "Not yet," he said, raising his drink. "Give me a month." I hit pause. There it was, the mask slipping in high definition. I sent the clip to Greg. He responded instantly. "This is it, the nail, the coffin." "The hammer?" I called Olivia all day, no answer. Then a single message: "Brian and I need space. Please stop calling." I stared at the screen, pulse beating in my ears. Brian wasn't just winning, he was rewriting her world. I didn't wait for her to scream. I went to her. The next morning, I drove to their condo, an over-polished building with a fake sense of luxury plastered on every glass panel. The kind of place a man like Brian chooses to make himself look more important than he is. I buzzed their unit. Brian answered. "Claire," he said flatly, "I need to speak with Olivia." "She's sleeping?" "It's 10 a.m. She's tired." "I'll wait." A beat. Then he delivered it in that calm, snake-slick tone. "She doesn't want to see you." I stiffened. "You can't keep her from me." "I'm not," he said. "She just doesn't want drama." And he hung up the intercom. I stood there in the sun, fists clenched. He thought he'd isolated her. He thought he'd won. He hadn't met the part of me that survived widowhood, betrayal, and a lifetime of wolves dressed as men. Before leaving, I slipped a USB drive into their mailbox, the one containing the wedding clip where Brian bragged about marrying rich. Let him try to explain that. 2 days passed in silence so thick it hurt to breathe. Then late afternoon, my front door creaked open. Olivia stood there, eyes red, fingers shaking. She didn't speak, just walked inside and sat at the kitchen table, the same place she used to doodle sunflowers and dinosaurs. I watched the video, she whispered. I sat beside her waiting. I asked him about it, she said. He said it was a joke, that guys say stupid things. I stayed still, silent, letting the truth echo louder than anything I could say. But, she swallowed. I checked his browser history. Her voice cracked. He Googled how to access trust funds, how to bypass verification, how to merge marital assets in the event of incapacity. She broke. I reached for her hand. She let me. I'm so stupid, she choked. I married a liar. I married someone who never loved me. No, I said softly. You married someone who hid who he really was. That's not your fault. We held each other as she cried into my shoulder, but then her phone buzzed, loud, sharp, violent. She looked at the screen and her face drained. It's Brian. She read the message aloud. If you try to leave me, I'll sue. Everything is in both our names. I'll expose you for using MY money for the wedding. You don't want this fight. Her hand shook. He's lawyered up, she whispered. My daughter was terrified. And that was the moment I changed. Not into something new, into what I always was, a mother who would burn down a city to protect her child. I called Greg immediately. He's threatening legal action. Good, Greg said. Then it's time. And that's how we ended up in a sleek downtown law office the next afternoon. Glass walls, cameras, security, a place where men like Brian couldn't wiggle out of consequences. Brian arrived late, arrogant, smirking like he was walking into a lecture he planned to win. Greg handed him the full report, device fingerprints, IP logs, timestamps, and the video clip. Brian flipped through the first pages. His face changed, his jaw tightened, he swallowed. There's no crime here, he stammered. Not yet, Greg replied, but this is enough to open 3 investigations. Brian glared at Olivia. You told them? She wasn't trembling anymore. No, she said coldly. You did. He tried to push back, bluff, intimidate, but he was cornered, and cornered men either beg or surrender. He chose surrender. He signed the annulment, signed the asset release, signed away every claim. The moment he left, Olivia crumpled into my arms and sobbed. It's over, I whispered. You're safe. Later that night, over pasta and garlic bread, she asked quietly. Mom, did you really inherit $7 million? I looked her in the eyes. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to protect you. She squeezed my hand with a strength I hadn't felt since she was a little girl. No more secrets, she said. No more, I promised. We ate quietly, 2 women who had survived a storm and stood taller because of it.